Here is the site plan. And we know the road is running off on this side. Here's the existing house and detached garage, concrete apron by the attached garage, existing courtyard patio. Here you can see those two little steps. So I'm going to go ahead and orient this on my drafting board so that I know that it's aligned. So I just place my T-square, which is, so the edge of the T-square, ooh, this is going to be, okay. So here's the head of the T-square, and I just use it to lay out, I'm going to site along the property line. That should do. And then I'll just tape this down, and it won't go anywhere because I don't actually want it to move. I do know that the site section is going to be horizontal. I want to be able to show from the house all the way to the road, and at 11 by 17, I would not have room to do that if I had north pointing up on the drawing board. So, okay, this is set. If I want to double check that for any reason, I can always grab one of my triangles and check one of the verticals. That looks pretty good. Okay, so now I'm going to take, this is the 12-inch roll of trace. I know some of you might have 18-inch rolls, and that's totally great. And lay it on top of the drawing, because I'm actually going to be drawing on the trace. So if you guys haven't already tried this, the best way to tear your trace is just lay your triangle against the roll and rip. And it's so easy. And then the other thing that's easy is see how it curls because it's been on a roll? If you flip it so that the curling side is down, it will stay where you want it while you're taping it down. So now I can see the floor plan, and I can see the trace, and I'm going to tape the trace down about right here and about right here. And now I can start drawing on this, and I don't have to worry that I'm going to mess up the existing floor plan. But the next thing really is to look at the drawing, and I can use my triangle to help me with this. So this little box is the existing patio, and I can see from this dimension, it's 15 feet 3 inches in this dimension, right? That's written down here. And it's 16 feet in the north-south. And I know that I want to do a site elevation that's going through that existing patio. But which direction do I want to look, right? I'm not sure yet. If I take a site elevation that's showing part of the patio, and I don't want to have to chop off part of the building, probably the best solution is to look down, which would be to the east. Because what that allows me to do is, here is that attached garage, and this is where the garage doors are. And then here are little steps up to the existing patio. And here's that brick wall at the edge of the north edge of the patio. So if I want to peek past this garage into part of the existing patio and still see everything between the north edge of the house and the road, then probably the best place to draw my elevation is here, like right along here. And then I don't show the garage, and I'm looking this way. So that is actually what happened on this drawing. And so this is that little edge of the patio and that little corner of the existing brick wall. And this is the house behind it. This is the outside wall of the attached garage, and then you see the landscaping as you work your way towards the road. But check it out. If you look at the site elevation, I actually really like the site elevation having the road on the left and the house at the right. And that might be because it's comfortable for me to draw it that way. It wouldn't actually matter if we drew it with the road at the right and the house at the left. It wouldn't really matter. I just personally like it this way. So if you do too, and you want your road to be on the left and your house on the right, there's a very, very simple solution. And that is, you take this site plan and flip it upside down. So I'm actually going to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to pull it off the drafting board because I'm going to now turn the site plan upside down. Voila, there it is. So now I'll want to use my T-square again and make sure that I've got the horizontals horizontal, because this will be a drafted drawing and we're going to be using T-square and triangle to make the new elevation also hard-lined. So I have determined that what I really want to do is draw the elevation, let's say right along here between the house and the detached garage. So we'll just set the page at a comfortable place for my T-square and my drawing board to be able to do that. And this time I'm lining up with the house, which is also a fine way to do it. And then I retape so nothing goes sideways when I'm not looking. For those of you that have the drafting tape, one of the things I love about it is it's so easy to peel it on and off and keep reusing the same little piece. Something that I also am going to do is tape the trace at this bottom edge. And this is an advantage that I have with my drawing because it was done in ink on paper. The contrast is really awesome. For those of you working from pencil underlays, what you're going to see won't be quite as much contrast. It should be plenty to draw a nice site elevation. Okay, so now I've got the road on the left and the house on the right. And the underlay itself is 11 by 17. And the frame around the drawing, you can see there's room for a title block. And then this line that runs around it is the frame that creates a margin all the way around. I have a piece of trace, and the trace is going to become the underlay for the finished ink on vellum version. And so I don't really need to worry about being perfect in where the drawing is centered on this piece of trace. I just have to draw it and let it be, and then it will be finalized in the ink version for the layout on the page. So what I'm going to do is get my lead holder next. So the first piece of this is to draw a ground line, and if you look up at this reference drawing, again, we're imagining the ground line is flat. And so I'm going to be working on this segment of the drawing, and because I don't really care about this part. We really don't need to show the backyard and the tennis courts and all of that. If you look up at the sample, I let the line die off once you get south of the house. So that would be right about here. So I am going to just start by making a ground line, and my trace sheet ends right about here. So I'll just kind of come up somewhere at a comfortable height where I can still see what I want to look at on the drawing. This will be good. I can see the edge of the house here, and here, and the patio, and the trees and shrub, the ditch, and the beginnings of the road. So I'm going to draw a nice ground line. Okay, so there's the ground line. And fun trick, the challenge of using underlays like this is you want this line that I just drew to be distinct from the ones already on the page. So by drawing it through the middle of the garage, I can read it, right? I know it's not part of what's in the house already. So now I can use my T-square. Actually, I use the little one because it's a little drawing. And my little triangle. And I'm going to give myself guidelines. So here is the edge of the house, and I'm not going to draw it too dark. Here is the north edge of the house, and that's actually the garage. And I'm not particularly worried about where that line draws because I can erase what I don't need. And now here is the edge of the patio. Here is the grove of trees. This one I'm going to do as a dotted line for myself because there will be trunks and there will be a canopy. So I kind of want to be able to erase. So here's one trunk. Here's one trunk. I think the third one is behind it somewhere. Here is the pine tree trunk. Here's one edge of the canopy. Here's one edge of the canopy. Okay. And then here's the approximate location. I'll give myself the property line so it's my reference. I know where it is. And then here is the beginning of the paved road. So let me give myself that also. I'm dotting these lines. But now now this is where it will be handy to go back and look at our field sketch. Reverse engineered field sketch. Okay, so the shrub is about 14 feet tall, plus or minus. So now I need my engineer scale because we're actually working at 20 feet equals 1 inch, the same scale as the site plan. So here is my 20 foot equals 1 inch scale. I get the red stripe, which is kind of fun. So top of the shrub is going to be 14 feet. So here is that dotted line that I drew for the top of the shrub. I'm just going to go from my ground line. Let's make it more clear, shall we? We'll say this is roughly the outline of the shrub right here, more or less. Okay, so now I'm just going to measure 14 feet from the ground line, which is right here, right? That ground line that runs, kind of cuts through part of the house. So here's the shrub. Here's one of my guidelines. Here's about 14 feet. So that's about how tall the shrub is going to be. And it's probably going to do something like this. Now the pine tree, I'm going to look at my cheat sheet. Aha, that one is about 23 feet tall, plus or minus. So I'm going to go to the center guideline where that trunk is. And you know, if this is taller, that's totally fine. I'm sure it's grown since, you know, I first looked at it. So, you know, kind of here's the trunk, right? And then there's the canopy. And that will be enough to get that started. And now this grove. So this grove, if you look up here, I think I touched on this briefly with the site plan, but there's actually a little raised, roughly round garden area here that has really pretty flowers and grasses underneath the aspen grove. And so here is one edge of the aspen grove and here is the other. And I want it to raise by about a foot. So I use my scale And this is a freehand operation, right? Because it's organic, but it's going to be about something like this. And then this is one tree trunk, so it's going to come up from like right about here. And then here's another, so that's going to come up maybe right about there. And now how tall is it? So 25 feet plus or minus. So here we go. 25 feet to the ground. Oh, here, let me turn it this way. That works better for the camera. 25 feet plus or minus. Okay, ground line. Yeah, 25 plus or minus. Let's see, that's pretty good. So canopy is roughly to here. Right. So we've now very lightly, this is super light and delicate, and I don't know if the camera is picking it up very well, but very light pencil lines outlining roughly the canopy, roughly at the height of 25 feet. For the pine tree, see? So here's our ground line. So the pine tree, the trunk should be, you know, kind of going along about like this. And then coming out to about here, right? And then going up to a little bit lower than the canopy for these guys. This guy was more like 23 feet if you look at this cheat sheet. So your pine tree will end up just a little bit shorter. And if you do this all with pencil lightly, you can always fine tune it quite easily. I would say the big challenge of using underlays is not to lose track of where you are. So here's my ground line, and it would be pretty easy to draw along this dimension line if I wasn't careful. But when you take your underlay out, you'll catch those things. Okay, so road starts here, ditch is here. We've got the shrub. We know the ditch is going to go down a little bit, so I'm just going to draw that going down. And then the road has a bit of a crown, so I'm going to draw that and give myself maybe a little cut line there. And then I'll just make a little note, ditch, road. Again, very, very lightly. The camera may not even be picking these up. This is drawn so lightly that I can erase it with one swipe of the eraser. But it's still quite visible and will help me when I remove the underlay. So I'm working from left to right, because if I worked from right to left, I would then be resting my hand on what I drew and smearing it. And I think my screencast is reversing that. So it looks as if I'm working from probably your right to your left. Either way, you want to pull your hand away from the part you've already drawn to minimize smearing. Here's our ground line again, right here. So the edge of the existing patio and the existing house is right here. The edge of the existing garage that's attached is right here. The back or south edge of the house is right here. So now we have a ground line. Without working very hard at all, I have located the south edge of the house, the north garage doors, the north edge of the existing patio, which coincides with that north edge. Again, this is part of the bedroom wing, this stuff and this stuff over here. So at this point, I'm going to see what I've got on the page. And the best way to do that is to lift your underlay slightly and just look at it. By lifting it away, or sorry, get this tape off for a second. There we go. You go there. And you go there. Okay, so if I do this, see that? Is the camera catching this? What you see now, I think the camera's catching it. You see some vertical lines on that ground line. And I know what they are, but right now it's not really finished yet because we need to show heights of the existing house. What we do have is a nice ground line, a note where the ditch is, a note where the road starts, and then the shrub and the two trees. So I hope the camera's catching this. At this point, I know that this area I can develop further. Now it's about finding out where the roof peaks are and how tall these things are. And to do this, I have to go back to my field sketch. So now, so I won't be totally confused by this whole thing, I am going to pull out the underlay, because now the underlay is no longer needed and it would be confusing rather than helpful. It's just a matter of juggling your little bits of drafting tape so that the drawing you want slides out and the one you want to keep doesn't move. So at this point, I've got tape on the edges of my trace, but they're not actually touching the underlay. And away goes the site plan. And now what I've got on my board is this. All right. So we've got, the road goes off this way. I drew a cut line here, but this is the beginning of the road. Here's that ditch, and I'll take my eraser and erase that level spot because really the ditch slopes gently like this. Shrub, pine tree, grove of aspens, and now I'm going to develop the house. Okay. So now the next part is you take out your field notes. Again, our reverse engineered field notes. And now I'm going to start, I want to know the highest part. So that's going to be this roof peak. So that's going to be 14 feet. So I can really, I'm just going to make a horizontal line. Yeah, camera sees the stripe, good. Okay. So here is my 14 feet. And now I use the T-square. Now, I'm not going to make an entire long line here because it's really just this part that has that 14-foot part. So I'm going to do something like this, and that's probably going to cover. And that will catch this part of the roof line. And now back here, which is this line, it's going to be 10 feet to the top of the wall. So I measure that. So there's the top of the wall. And now I need to know how far over is the roof peak, because that will tell me at some point there's a slope here, right? And I don't quite know where that starts. So I'm going to go back to the field sketch, and it's 14 feet to the roof peak. So from the outside edge of the wall, 14 feet. And this is going to give me the roof peak. So here is the roof peak. So I need to actually extend this line slightly. Okay. So now all I have to do to get the correct slope to the roof is connect from here to here and then extend the eave by 1.5 feet. So here's my tick line for 10 feet. Here's the roof peak. So here we go. Right? So now how far should the eave be? Well, let's measure it. Should be about 1.5 feet. So at 20-inch scale, that's going to be approximate, but it's right about there. Okay. So now I can darken that. Now I know exactly where that is. So now it's a matter of very nicely drawing a heavier line from here to the roof peak. There it is. So you guys just saw me do this and then go back this way. Ching would frown on that. But for a very short line segment, it made a little bit darker line and it worked. And I'm going to be very clear that that's the end of the roof and you are the roof peak. So now we've got this wall and this roof slope. And now we need to do, I would do this line next. And so we need to know where this wall is. Well, we've already got it. So this wall also is going to be 10 feet. So let's measure that next. So here's our 10 feet right there. So this is going to come down approximately like so. All right. And again, at 20-inch scale, doing a 1.5 foot roof overhang is going to be really approximate, but it's right about here. I'll take my eraser shield and clean those up. I'll do that right now. I use my kneaded gum eraser for almost everything, but you know, when you're using the eraser shield, your white eraser may work better in a lot of applications. Okay, so now what we have left is this, which is part of this, right? So this extension is that eave over the north entry to the existing garage. So that's going to be to right about here, where the eave of the house roof ends. Right about there. Okay. So now I'll go ahead and use the plastic eraser. I'm going to use the eraser shield again and just take you away. Okay. So now we're getting there. Okay. So now this roof, which corresponds to this one, and we've got the outline of the house, right? And now we need to flesh out the existing patio. So something that is worth pointing out is this was a graphic device that I used. This that pops out really is also 14 feet tall, but I allowed the line to be up above the garage. And that was something that I sort of felt made it read really nice. But in point of fact, this is still a 10 foot and this is still a 4 foot, and we're still at 14 feet to grade. So I might do that again here actually. The other thing is this here is 16 feet long, and that's as long as the entire existing patio, right? If we drew a box down here, you would see that. And there's roughly 8 feet hidden by the garage and roughly 8 feet revealed. So this is a visual marker that was more for me than anybody else, like from here back to here. So just, you may find that some of these things work for you also if you do a lot of these drawings. This was a drawing that I used a lot in designing what was going to happen as the patio changed, because I could do overlays over this and sketch out ideas very, very quickly and compare those to what I was looking at in plan and decide what was working and what wasn't. So having a visual marker for myself was useful. But let's see. Let's start, I'm going to start with this and this. So 5 feet and 10 feet. So here's the 10. Here is the 5. And I don't even know if the camera's picking these up, but little tiny ticks are enough. And then this wall comes partially this way. And this is going to go back to here. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to draw it back a little bit. So this is now the top of the brick patio wall, and there's going to be a gate in here. And then this is the edge of the house, and now there needs to be a 1.5 foot eave. And as always, at this scale, it will indeed be approximate, but we'll come as close as we can. So this roughly right about there. So there to, if you haven't learned this yet, as you're drafting, you keep over and over again snugging the head of your T-square against your board. And you see me doing this like constantly because it can go ajar. And if it's not snugged up along the edge of your board, then all of a sudden your lines are going in all kinds of different angles. Okay, so now this guy's going to get erased. So I'll use the shield again, but I'm going to stick with my kneaded because I just really like that for this. So now what we see is a line for the top that ends. I'm going to measure that. And then we have the line of the eaves and the eaves here, right here. Here's the edge of the house. Here's the top of the patio wall. Here's the ground line. So some of these guidelines can now be erased. So I'm going to take this one away because it really doesn't need to be there. And I drew it a little darker than it needed to be because it's taking a few swipes of the eraser. This one we're done with. This one we're done with. I'd say that can go away. These can go away. This. All right, just in a few minutes, right? We've been going for what, 20 minutes? And it's beginning to look a great deal like a site elevation. So these can go rather quickly. All righty. So now let's get this squared away. So that is this section here. And there's a 3-foot gate. And so let's see what that might look like. Okay, so it doesn't start right bang up against the garage. It's about right there. So there's a little bit of space. I'm going to draw the vertical here. So this is that corner of the brick that turns and faces west. So the patio has brick that wraps on the west side and on the north side. And on the north side, it meets the edge of the house. On the west side, it serves as edge protection. So here we go. And now the patio itself, it will be easiest to draw this just a foot above grade. Trying to get 9 inches at this scale is just going to be challenging. So we'll call it a foot, and that will be close enough at this scale. There. Okay, so there's the patio. So here's that brick wall, right? And then here's the existing patio. And inside here, there's another step because there's, remember, 2 risers here. Alrighty. So now we should have a patio wall that is about 4 feet at its highest point from the finished patio surface and 5 feet at its highest point from grade. So people, by convention, are somewhere around 5 or 6 feet tall. So I'm going to do a little dot here, and that's about 6 feet up from the patio. And I'm just going to do a person, like a little kind of a stick figure type person. But that gives you a sense of scale. So suddenly that makes the building look a little more building-like and not just blobs on a page. And this little person is not anything fancy. It's just like a little circle for the head, a couple lines for the arms. I kind of do from the shoulder down to the foot in one swoop, and then the other shoulder down to the other foot in one swoop. So it's just a gesture, really, a gesture drawing. The other thing I did on this drawing, which was a visual device, is these eaves are more like 2 feet, right? And that's not exactly accurate, but as a schematic drawing that let me test different roof angles for the patio, it was kind of nice. So at any rate, here we have, now we have the whole drawing roughed out. So at this point, you're ready to start working with, where do you want it to end on this side? And I would say right about here. So right about there is plenty far enough. And then I'm going to go back and look at the field sketch and say, okay, there needs to be a title. So I'm going to leave space for that. And the title is probably going to be almost as big as the drawing. So I'm just going to very lightly draw guidelines that are roughly where I think the title is going to go. So that's just kind of rough, but it's there. And then I know I want to have these dimensions. So I am now going to erase some of this, right? And from the house, the longest dimension is this one. So this one will be at the bottom. This one is the shortest. This one is sort of medium. So I probably need about this much space. So I'm just going to very lightly pencil in, could be a little closer. Yeah, right about there. Just going to lightly pencil this. And then I know I'm going to need a little space for the next one. It could probably go right about there, and then the third one right about there. So see, I'm just kind of looking at it and saying, I know I need about that much space to have the dimension line and a little note above it and not be cramped. So here's the top tick mark. So I want to go from here to 12 feet. So I need to give myself, right here at the edge of the brick wall, a vertical line going down into the ground. There. Very lightly in case I need to move it. And now from here over 12 feet. And let's see. So, and again, at the 20-inch or 20 feet equals 1-inch scale, detail is a bit exciting. So that's going to go to right about there. This one is going to be 65.1 feet. So at this scale, let me draw, you're going to be up here. Okay. So there's that first dimension. The second one is going to be right about here, I'd say. Okay. So again, I'm just very, very lightly, so lightly, it's not clear to me the camera is grabbing all of these. But these are very, very faint lines using an HB lead with a nice sharp tip. And it's like a feather on the page, very delicate. These lines are so faint that these are the kind of lines that one swipe of my kneaded eraser, they're gone. So now from here, which is the edge of the existing patio out to the road, that's going to be 65.1 feet. I'm probably just going to call it 65 feet because of this teensy scale we're at. So here is my 65. So that is actually the beginning of the ditch. So I'll be changing this slightly and it'll go a little more like that. So we want to measure, so this is the 12 feet, right? This is the edge of the concrete pad. So from here, 80 feet, not from here. This 12 feet is still part of the pavement in front of the garage. And then the 80 feet is really here. And it does sort of look like it lines up with the tree, but it's approximate. What we're really going after is that concrete pad, and the gravel is between the edge of the pad and where the paved road starts. So that should be this. Okay, so there's a slightly darker, and let me get the proper distance. It shouldn't be touching that road. Okay, so let me darken this also. There we go. Now, to here, I don't want to interfere with the other dimension lines, so I'm just going to stop it right there. Got that? And then this dimension line will be above this one. But this is going to have that note that says 80 feet gravel from house to paved road. And I might change this and make it garage apron. That would be more clear. 80 feet. Paved garage. Let's see if it fits. Area to road. Yeah, just fits. Okay, see, and if I had started it over here, it would fit better. So there's your note, and then we've got hi leaf. This is that 12-foot dimension. And we'll just write 12 feet. And when you do this in ink, you want to letter it nicely so that it's not all wiggly, but rather lined up a little more nicely. And now we go property edge. We'll go ahead and let this dimension stand from the edge of the house to the edge of the property. So that will be to this guideline. Are we getting here? I think so. I'm going to double check this, guys. Yeah. Interesting. Okay, I'm going to go back and look at if you get in a place where your measurements aren't quite lining up, then you need to go back and look at your original plan and take a second look. And indeed it is 65 feet plus or minus from the north edge of the house to the property line. So this drawing is correct, north edge of house to property line. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that that's correct on here. So there's the 65 plus or minus. So that will be the middle dimension line. It's right about there. And then we extend this down, right? And then this line can also extend right here down. So I'm going to erase it and draw it more nicely. There we are. Okay. So tick marks. And then this one is 65. We'll just say plus or minus north edge house to property line. Okay. So, and then your swale is doing something like this. And we don't actually need to call out how far that is because we have the note with the dimension here. Let me erase this and draw it more swale-like and less goofy. Something along those lines. Okay, so we have this note at the bottom, which is telling us that it's 80 feet from the edge of pavement to the road. We've got this note telling us that we've got 65 feet of property to play with from the edge of the house to the property line. And then this is county property for which a letter from the county person was secured, giving permission to make that safe also. So at this point, all that's left now really is to clean it up and go for the line weights. As I use this as a cross between a site elevation and a study for designs, this line represents where the patio ends. So I know from the site plan, there we go, that the patio is 16 feet wide, the existing patio, 16 feet wide. So I know that from the existing plan, but I also can't see where that ends on this drawing because I'm looking at that wall of the attached garage and the house. So this tells me about where the patio ends. So when I'm looking at roof lines, I know that I can then use this as an underlay and experiment with different roof heights and angles. And I know it's going to end right there, right? Because that's we're not going to touch that wall of the house. For me, this line is a visual device that helped me in the design work. The rest is playing with the line weights and making it look pretty. So cross-hatching for the ground will help strengthen. And I just do 3 diagonal, 3, 3, 3. See how that's making it read in the language of line? This is helping it to read as ground. In fact, this is not sitting on top of concrete with a parking lot under it. It's actually ground. And I'm going to darken this a little bit also. See how this suddenly reads better than this? Like this looks more solid and real than this does. So I would put cross-hatching here too. Can probably stop the road right about there. And I'll just go ahead and keep sketching this and then turn off the video so that you have line weights on here too. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So the rest of this, again, playing with line weight. This was a hard lined line, but this is not paved, guys. This is really gravel. So I'm going to go back over it freehand, slightly jiggity on purpose. And this guy also, right? That's a little raised garden area and a few little bits of grass and plants. And then this can go up and kind of make it look a little more tree-like. And this would be your summer or fall shot, obviously. You know, it would not look like this now. And then here is the pine tree, which is lovely and big, and the branches kind of do this, but it is clearly a pine tree, and it's got that kind of conical shape as a result. And then we've got the shrubs, which are kind of going a little bonkers. So there it is. That's enough as an underlay. And then you've got space for your title blocked out here. And then you also need this note. And you've got plenty of space to pencil it in here. Okay? And then the house is, you know, here we're talking built by humans. So what I'm going to do is hardline this a little bit darker. There. Okay? That's enough. And then this in turn you can use as an underlay. Like right here, it's done. All it needs is a title and the note added. And we'll go ahead and add south and north.